Hey everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. Hello. Hello, hello. Um, if people kind of carry on joining, they can just roll in and catch up. But hi, my name's Dan. I'm Dan Crow, Director of A Space Arts. And on the call tonight, we also have my colleague James.
Hi, yeah, I'm James. I work on the programming team at Space Arts.
So we'll facilitate your conversation this evening. Just to say we are recording, so we will be able to share this afterwards. So if you didn't want your face in the recording, please feel free to turn your cameras off. That's completely optional. Um, and yeah, if you leave your mics off, but we were gonna, as we run through the brief, we'll stop halfway to take any kind of questions at that point, and then a kind of main Q&A at the end. But my colleague James is going to help facilitate the chat. So anything on your mind, do pop it in there, and we'll either try and do it halfway or catch up at the end. So yeah, welcome. I hope you all had a chance to have a read through the brief. Clearly, something sparked your interest to be here. So thank you very much for taking the time. And the plan is we will just run through the brief. We will kind of unpack it. We'll go through about halfway, just kind of step by step unpacking what we mean by some of it. Stop, take some questions, and then the second half will be more about the project stages, how to make your expressions of interest, etc. We'll do a similar walk through the appendices, just a few key ones. But if there is a specific question or appendices or plan you want to mention or see, kind of mention it in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and then make sure it's worked. Bear with me. So, a couple of thumbs up if that's worked for you. Can we see that? Excellent, marvelous. Thank you very much. I appreciate some of you might be on a phone, so zoom in if you can. And equally, I'll try and make this as big as I can. So, Hearth House, House Road, Southampton. Right at the start, we've got a summary which should give you a lot of the headline key information. To call it out from the start, the deadline is Tuesday, the 30th of September. We'll unpack this further, but we do recognise as an arts organisation the burden and the time it can take to make an application. So there's specifically a two-stage process to help kind of manage that process, with stage one being quite light touch. We'll go into more details, but essentially, that is just some written or recorded information, answering three questions, and a selection of images. And you can convey those in any way that is best aligned to your practice. Uh, I can be your main contact. Um, and if you've got any inquiries or any kind of clarifications or questions, please just do send them in and ask anything that's on your mind. We want you to be able to make the best possible expression of interest. Um, these are our contact details. Feel free to phone, feel free to email. Uh, you're here, you're at the Artist Online Information Session, so thank you for being part of that. For artists that move forward in the project at stage two, we offer a development fee. So there's a £500 development fee, which is really we're thinking a day or so of your work to take your expression of interest into a proposal. And so we're clear where we're aiming, what we're aiming for. There's a £25,000 total budget into the delivery stage, and we're looking to complete by summer 27. So let's unpack some of this. I've just highlighted keywords to draw your attention to them. So the public art project looks to introduce a series. We're not defining how many, but what the client would really like to see is a series of works that run through the landscape, and we'll show you the landscaping proposals. Where they're situated, how they kind of work with the environment is completely open to your interpretation. Alongside that, there would be a signature headline piece. Again, we can show you the location the client's got in mind for this when we get to the plans. But as you come into the site, they hope something will greet visitors, and then the series of works, kind of link that and run through the spaces and are there for the residents. Pulse House is academic accommodation. It's specifically for your kind of higher end international students. They have spent or are spending a lot of money on the materials. They are really looking to have a kind of exemplar project. There's lots of student housing in Southampton, as you can imagine, not all of it is exemplar, but they are really aiming at the kind of the top end of the market. It's located near the University of Southampton, which has a lot of international students, and that's their kind of client. It currently sits in quite a big area. The existing building that's coming down is probably only a quarter of the space that's on site, and they really want to make use of the landscaping. So there's a lot of green and open spaces. In amongst that, there's bespoke furniture and kind of discrete areas where they're hoping people will kind of study, relax, hang out, and I'll show you some of those on the plan. But how the artworks work with those spaces is really important. I think that starts to come through in the theme that we'll talk about. But an intriguing and inspiring kind of set of artworks. I think this kind of a series of works is something to hold in your mind. None of that bit's highlighted. It's very much open to a single artist. You could be a duo, a collective. We're very open-minded to who proposes the works. Um, some experience of public art is specifically said because we appreciate that this could be of interest to artists that are looking to build experience in that area. You may have also worked in public art for many years. Either way is fine. If this is a kind of a new area to you, we just ask you to kind of think about how you might demonstrate your ability to take on a project with this budget and timescale. At the moment, the client is really open-minded. Actually, I'll just pause and give you an example of some of the other clients we've worked with in the city being very much what we would call concrete thinkers. They want a thing on a plinth. And every time we go into a meeting with a new client, we try and unwind them from that. And this client has been very, very open to that suggestion, is open to what public art could mean and how it could be delivered, but very much that they see this as an opportunity to have that kind of slightly USP on site, have something different on site. It comes through in the materials palette they've chosen for the build itself. They are spending, a not insignificant amount of money on this. They are looking to have something quite special. So to endorse the client, which I really do, they are very open-minded, and I think yeah, there'll be an interesting group of people to work with. Within that group are the landscape designers who I've met a couple of times now, who are kind of quite key to the project when we think about how we integrate it and deliver it. And of course, there'll be a main site contractor who will be a key point of contact for us. But as part of our role in this process, we will be the artist's first point of contact. We will support you throughout the process. We will be there in client meetings, in budget meetings, etc., at later stages. So we're very much here to support the process from now all the way through to completion. We'll have a look at some of the CGIs when we get to that point. This is just to reinforce again that the client's really looking to have a series of works located across the site. Oh, my highlighter didn't work. A series of works alongside a signature headline piece. It's a really quite a green and lovely site. There are quite a lot of large and protected trees on there. So there's a specific plan around TPOs, tree protection orders. It's not something to get too hung up on this stage. It's just something to hold in your minds. Particularly large works that are going to need particularly large foundations, we'd have to probably think about working with the council's TPO team. Just pointing it out now, but it's not anything to worry about. And then I mentioned the client being, I think a good client to work with, an interesting client. This concept of biophilia has come from them, and it's been the kind of ethos, if you like, that the landscape designers have worked with. And actually, a lot of the materials and the planting is kind of leaning into this. They really want this kind of notion of, kind of the organic system really being kind of the green and open spaces on the site, being there and integrating and affecting and in a positive way, supporting the people that live there. So this has come from them. It's kind of quite core to their ethos. So I think we've just tried to your artists, to your inspiring people. We just gave a series of prompt questions just to think that through. Might just to give you some, different lenses or perspectives to think that through. Those questions haven't come from the client, they're from us. They're just nods towards you to help get some ideas going. And similarly, just a couple of useful links to biophilia and what that means. Again, for inspiration, just for reference, just so we're kind of, yeah. I'm going to stop there. That's around about halfway, James, if that's all right with you. Um, and we
Yeah,
can any questions at this point. If anyone's got anything on that so far, the next bit will be about stages and dates and how to make an expression of interest.
no, you're doing good, Dan. No questions. So yeah,
No. Should we carry on?
yeah,
Okay.
carry on.
So,
Oh, well, actually, one question has just popped in,
yeah,
just
yeah,
the time. Would the client prefer a local artist?
they're open-minded. They're open-minded. They're London based, so the client owns lots of properties across the country. I think we would just take every application on its merit.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up one. Would you recommend a site visit for the first stage, for the expression of interest stage?
We, we'll get into that bit. We're not offering site visits at this stage. For the proposal development, yes, we'd ask for a site visit from everyone that's the four that are shortlisted. Um, yeah, we just couldn't accommodate the numbers. Google Earth and actually Street View are quite useful.
Um, and oh, there are a couple of questions coming in now. So,
Oh,
for TPO trees, would they be able to design something for them specifically for those
for the
trees?
tree.
Yeah.
Uh, that's a great question. I would have thought the answer is yes. What the TPO officers at the council get very concerned about is the roots. So the challenges have come before when it's kind of foundations and root systems in and on the trees. I see no reason why not.
Cool. And do you know if there's a height restriction on the work?
Not that we've been told about, so no.
Great.
Great
Okay.
questions, people. Excellent. Very varied.
Uh, Great. Okay. Nicholas just updated that. Nicholas just said that TPOs, there's usually a restriction to the area around about 10 meters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, it's the root systems that they get particularly precious about, and understandably so. But we'll see it in the landscaping, and if you looked on Street View, there was a lot of ground there. There's plenty of scope to think about where the works are sited.
A couple more questions have come in. Can the work be ground based and set within the landscaping?
Yes, yes.
And would it be for a minimum of 25 years, the lifespan of the work that's referring to?
It's a really good question. We haven't been told 25 years. When we talked to the client originally, we talked about a 10-year lifespan as something as a kind of a minimum. It will come up later on, but when we get through to the four selected artists, we would ask for a maintenance plan to be included in that.
Yeah, cool. Okay. I think that's the questions for now.
Yeah. Okay. Fabulous. So the second half of it, I guess, is a little bit more just kind of practical and factual. As you said at the start, the deadline is Tuesday, the 30th of September at 9 a.m. We are just trying to pin down a date with the client, ideally in the first, no later than second week of October, to go through all those expressions of interest. So it will probably be the second half of October by the time we get back to artists. But we gave ourselves quite a big window. So we've got all the way through to the 10th of November for proposal development stage. Beyond that, we've got stages working through to December for interviews and selection. You've got almost all of 2026 as production. a generous install window, trying to create some slack there in case production needed longer. And we're looking to install in July 2027. They are really fixated on their completion date because they need to hit the start of the academic year 2027. So they're full on trading as as kind of going concern. As I mentioned earlier on, we appreciate the time and effort it goes into writing proposals, and that frankly, it can be very challenging to make a living as an artist. So, two stages with a really light touch stage up front. So obviously that's this stage. You can write or you could record your application. We're open to a voice note, a video, any way that you're most comfortable and accessible to express your ideas is fine for us. Please just try and keep it, if it's video or voice note, to 3 minutes. And if it's written, just be concise. We've said 500 words, depends what point size you're using, but a side of A4 will be sufficient for now. And these are questions to think about when you write that application. You don't have to. You can answer more questions. You can tell us more about yourselves. But just what's your approach to the project? What's your kind of way into this? Um, how it communicates the theme. Now that might come through in your visuals very obviously. It might not. So this is an opportunity just to kind of to elaborate on that a little bit. How are you playing to that theme of biophilia? How will it affect the residents, etc. And just what motivates you, apart from potentially the fee and the commission, what excites you maybe artistically would be interesting to hear for the client, from your point of view. And then, of course, sitting alongside that is something visual. Again, we've been really open about how that could be conveyed. It could be a sketch, a design, it could be digital, it could be drawn. We really don't mind anything that helps just convey your ideas and gives that clear sense of your artistic intention. We will, be very clear with the client. This is an expression of interest. We're just looking for your direction of travel at this stage, and that could be up to 4 images or 4 sides of A4. And please include your CV, just so we understand that kind of background, your contact details. If you have a website or social media platform that shows the client other examples of your work, that would be really useful to see as well. But at this stage, there is no more than that. And I hope that's, yeah, not asking too much. We will go through every expression of interest. Myself and James and other colleagues will read and write and look at everything you send in. And please, yeah, no hard copies. Please just, if you can email everything into me, that would be brilliant. So at this stage, it's difficult to say. We don't know how many applications we'll get, how many people will be on the kind of short list that goes to the client. We will give them a long list so they get to see absolutely everyone. They will be looking to then find 4 artists. And at that stage, we can offer a £500 proposal development fee. At that stage, we'll also share a slightly more detailed brief. So we'll start to break down the timelines a little bit more, be able to give you any feedback from the client if you were selected. So that will be both a kind of generic developed brief around the site, but also something tailored as well for you specifically. We'll go into that more detail, but at that stage, we would also be looking to get any kind of budgets together. If you're using any fabrication, third parties, proposed materials, etc., a production timeline. So we will ask for a little bit more work at that stage. We can also then offer site visits. In fact, we'd really encourage that at that stage, and a proposal development session that could be online or in person, just to help you kind of really think through the project and make your best possible pitch. So we know what we're aiming for. There is a £25,000 budget. That does need to include everything, all of your fees, materials, fabrication costs, VAT if that's applicable, and any travel expenses you might incur. We've been able to talk the client up to making sure we've got the maximum budget we can put over to the project, but just for clarity, that absolutely is the ceiling. In terms of if you're at that stage, we would really expect to see about 30 to 40% to break that down. That's 7.5 to 10,000 pounds worth of the budget going as artist fees. As an organisation, we take a stand to work with industry standard rates and don't believe artists shouldn't be paid properly for their work. They should. So this is kind of where we're benchmarking it. We'll have individual proposal development conversations so we can think that through with you, but just that's kind of where we'd expect to see fees land. And then this is into the future. But if successful with the final selected artist, we'd enter an agreement, we'd break it down into some stages. So there's some money up front and then just a kind of agreed milestones throughout the project and a small retention at the end. So we'll stage that money as your project would need it. You may need money for materials or fabricators or your time at specific moments, but we can figure that out on a kind of individual basis. You're here at the information session, so thank you very much. All of our contact details are there again. And we're into the appendices. So that might be another moment to stop, I think, and just take any questions if there are any at this stage.
Yeah, we've had a couple come through.
Sure.
Um, are the architects open to the artist integrating into the structure that's already planned, like designing railings or other integrated features?
Thank you. They've been really clear about they wouldn't want anything integrated into or onto the building. Things like railings, things that are kind of free, not freestanding, things that are within the landscape, I guess, gates, railings, shelters, furniture. Yeah, absolutely fine. But just not onto or into the building.
Cool. Another person has asked whether the contractor is able to help with foundations or labor of install, um, and more specifically around like whether that would come from the 25K commission or whether that will sit outside of that 25K.
Yeah, it's a really good question. We've asked that right up front because it's always very helpful if we've got a main contractor that wants to be part of the team and help you deliver this. Um, so I think it's fair to say there's kind of a goodwill from the contractor at the moment. Specifically, I mean, it might just depend on costs, like the size or the amount of a foundation. I think if you were selected to be one of those final four, that's a question I would take in and get a definitive answer. But there's certainly goodwill from the contractors to help out on this.
Cool. That's all the questions for now.
Okay. Um, so yeah, just a couple of the appendices that were in the initial brief, and I will switch documents. Just a little bit of a locator, just to show you where this is in Southampton. Uh, the kind of T-shaped building actually is I think 60s probably, former student accommodation block. But you can see there it's setting quite a lot of land. They really want to maximize that landscape. Um, it's in a residential area, but a kind of slightly quieter, maybe part of the residential area in central Southampton. And it's just near Southampton Common, which is a beautiful big open green space, site of special scientific interest. And just to the other side of this main road is the avenue, which is kind of the main bus route in and out of town and up to the university. So really well situated. I just pulled this one out, but we'll have a look at the landscape plans in a minute as well, just to give you a bit more of a sense of what the building will look like. And also this red angled box is an area where they would like to see something headline signature-esque. Um, that it doesn't show it on this, but there is also a tree on there. So there is a little bit of work to do to navigate that. But if you were to think about, this being a kind of an entrance piece, so kind of just over here would be the kind of main entrance into the site. So something that greets visitors and residents. And then, as I said earlier on, that series of works can then kind of play with the landscape and, yeah, be integrated in a number of places. So I'll just take us into the appendices. Um, I sent you like 36 pages, or you might have downloaded rather 36 pages. So I've just picked out some key ones. We just wanted to give you as much information as we could. Um, that's a good, clear main shot of the site. I don't know why, but the architect, when he put these together, he's omitted the trees, but there are trees running along the front of the site here. In that image, you can see a few more of them. So they're the kind of the slightly CGI ones, and I'm just going to jump ahead a couple of pages. So this goes into plan view. I'll make it a bit bigger. I'm hoping you can all kind of see that okay, but you can download it. And then just in plan to kind of explain that. So this area here where the cursor's just moving around would be that headline signature entry piece. So, main route in, this kind of greets people. But then you can get a sense here of how much green space, how much landscaping across the back as well as the front there is to think about where other works could be cited. Uh, the person's comment about the railings here, yeah, actually, that's a really good long run right at the front of the site. Um, but yeah, I think I just would encourage you to kind of to be quite bold in maybe kind of where you situate works. I wouldn't be too hung up on anything right now. Just kind of propose your ideas, and if they get accepted and moved forward, we'll figure out kind of detail around that. I'm going to skip through just a sort of few key ones, just to show you the materials palette, to give you a sense of kind of texture and color and tone that will be on the main building. For example, if you read there's like kind of oxidized bars. So this kind of rusty, ochre kind of color comes through quite a lot on the palette. And this just gives you a bit more detail as well. For example, this top floor and one of the side panels, this is a terracotta tile that's angled and steeped. And in one of the client meetings, just a point of interest, the architect was making a really good argument to having these as part of the material palette. They are very expensive, but the client approved it. So I thought that was a good example of their commitment to a quality build. Excuse me, I'll just come back out a bit. I hope you can see that one still. This is just a bit of an overview of the TPOs, the tree preservation orders. The ones in light blue, and there's a key up here which describes them. The ones in light blue are the kind of ones that are of particular kind of interest. Some of the other ones, the reds, are being removed to clear some of the site. But yeah, so you can see kind of there's a large overhang here right at the front, in and around this area where they're looking for sort of a signature piece. There's two. So that is something to be navigated. Again, I wouldn't kind of be too hung up on that right now at all. I propose your work as you want to see it, and we'll kind of figure out those details as we move through to the second development stage. Page. So this is showing you the lands. Oh, sorry, let me come back out. This is showing you the landscape. I hope that's big enough. But what I want to pick out here, these are in plan view, but you're starting to see the other bits of furniture that are coming into the site. So these are benches, for example. So there's kind of, they're trying to, as I mentioned, kind of create these kind of both discrete but social areas. These are pagodas. So there's kind of shelters in here as well. If I move forward a page, you get a slightly different sense of, bear with me. On this one, you can see those shapes of the shelters and the seating, but then also the kind of the pathways that run around the site. So I think this might be quite a useful one in terms of where you might want to think about siting works. How do people interact, or do they see when they're sat or walking through the site? Mm. And then one final set is just these ones at the end, which are the CGIs again. So hopefully that gave you a bit more of a sense of the planting, etc. But this is that kind of that area at the front that people will see as they come in. I go to this one, it's slightly zoomed out, and at that point I'll leave that image up. And again, we can take any more questions that any of you might have.
Yeah, we've got a couple coming in. Just one jumping back about someone's asked, are murals allowed on the walls or glass?
I don't think it would fly. They've been really specific about, not kind of leaving the building alone as it is and thinking about the landscaping.
Is any sort of community engagement asked for by the client?
Do you know, it's a great question. It hasn't been asked for, but I think it would only strengthen an application. It's not an imperative, but also it's a challenge because there isn't a community on site at the moment. So Bev, don't set yourself any hurdles to leap that you don't have to, but you might want to be thinking about, the kind of the community in a kind of wider sense, the people that already live on that street or in and around that kind of area.
Yeah. And so people wouldn't really have any access to sort of the community or types, like the students that live in the building, simply because they won't be there.
I just
Yeah.
won't be there until September 2027. Yeah.
Um, do you know the species of the trees?
Oof, that's a great question. I think on that landscaping plan, the TPO's one, they're listed. If ever asked that question, has a look at that. If they're not there, drop me an email and I'll find you out. I'm pretty sure I read it in there. And there's also a landscaping plan that tells you all the planned foliage they want to plant. But again, if there's something in there that or there's something missing, just let me know and we'll find out.
And do you know the material of the pathway, or is that listed
And
anywhere?
no, it's in there. There's a landscaping design in there, and it lists out the type of brick and the type of paving, and it's really quite detailed. As with the kind of the foliage comments, if there's something that isn't in there you want to know, just drop us an email and we'll find out.
And will maintenance services be required for landscape designs?
We're going to ask if you're selected as the four artists for the development stage. Yeah, we will ask you for not a full maintenance plan at this stage, but that you've taken maintenance into consideration or the kind of longevity of the materials. As I mentioned up front, we've been asked to work towards a 10-year kind of, lifespan. It would probably be a lot longer than that.
Cool. That's all the questions for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
If people want to take their mics off and ask a question, you're welcome to. Um, maybe everything's been covered. Difficult to tell what's on your mind. But, yeah. Okay. If that's all your questions, and if you hang up the call and think, hey,
Going to ask a quick question. For artists coming in from overseas, what would be the fees for that when it comes to site visits?
that's a really good question. I think we would just have to kind of FaceTime and walk you around and kind of walk around a couple of times and ask any questions. Um, it's a question we've been asked on email. We haven't limited it. We have like kind of opened it up to international entrants. If you were selected, you just got to bear in mind that out of that 25K budget, it would have to include any kind of transport and shipping costs. So that could be prohibitive, but that's for the artists to really make a decision on. Um, and I think just to expand on that, we recognise it. £25,000. Yeah, that's not not a lot of money, but it's also a lot of money. It is kind of something for you to kind of balance there. I think, how many works you propose in terms of a series of works, I would imagine would have a kind of real budget implication for your thinking. So that just something to bear in mind. But yes,
Well, would work for me and my team because our company is based in Barbados. So different in currency, our materials being sourced from Barbados, so it fit perfectly into the budget.
okay, that sounds really interesting. Thank you, Mackenzie.
A couple of questions coming in the chat.
Yeah.
Are there any lighting proposals for the landscape?
That's a good one. Not that I could immediately think of, as in like thinking back through the plans. If
Cool.
whoever's asked that question has a look, I'll also have a look. Maybe we can just email to confirm it. I mean, there's going to have to be some lighting in there for sure. If we've got a detailed design on it yet, I don't know.
And at the time of the site visits, will the development be in progress? Or like what stage will it be at?
Yeah, they are. They've just started to demolish the former building that's there. So by the time we get to a site visit, I think we're expecting to see something quite open. possibly, they'll have to be doing some groundworks, but they wouldn't be up and out of the ground by then, no.
So at which stage will the artist be able to begin the work?
Um, I just need to look at the proposal or get the stages in the brief again. I think once we've selected, which is for the end of this year, is
In
December.
what stage of construction?
Well, we would expect the artist to be making the work from January 2026,
Okay.
and then working towards kind of January 27 to be starting to bring the work on site. So we'd expect works to be made, off-site in studios or with fabricators, and then on site from January 27.
Wait, that's all the questions in the chat
Okay.
now.
Would anyone else like to ask anything whilst we're gathered?
Oh, questions just come in, a couple of them. Um, if a proposal impacts the furniture and railings, can we borrow architect money to do so?
Possibly. I think the furniture they're pretty set in their thinking around. Um, but we can ask that question. I think railings and kind of other interventions have probably got some scope for that. Um, I can't overstep my kind of territory if you sense. I don't have permission to talk on behalf of their budgets, but we've certainly seen that on projects before where there can be, yeah, other budget lines can draw against the public art. I think if you're going to go for that kind of railing, just yeah, kind of go big with it.
And do you know if the client or the architects have strong views about color? For instance, do they want the artworks to blend with the palette already outlined?
Yeah, good question. They're very definite on the color palettes for the building. And as you've seen, they're reasonably muted. I don't, I can't imagine a kind of hot pink is going to kind of be their bag, but it's difficult to say at this stage. I think I would propose what you think is right for the site as best you can from what you've seen. That's a really good question.
Cool. And if the work is a small ground-based work, how will health and safety be considered? Will the areas be segmented off at all, or will they be completely open? Do you know?
The areas, as far as I'm aware, are kind of completely open. There's a kind of free-flowing path, so I think they kind of want that circulation piece to be there. We'd have to think about health and safety with any works. I mean, yes, small works could be a trip hazard, so we'd have to think that through. Again, at this expression of interest stage, I would propose what you see fit, and we can work through some of those details.
Cool. Uh, no more questions at the moment. So yeah.
Cool.
Just had one last question.
Sure.
When you said series of works, is there that amount, like 5 or 6 pieces?
It's not,
Or
yeah, we're not defining that, Mackenzie, at the moment. I think a series, in my mind, would certainly be more than one. It's a few, but I think the artist would need to think about, their work, their materials, their budget, and how many works can be proposed. I think the client is really keen that, that there's a relationship between that signature piece so that everyone sees when they come in. And then if you were to walk around the site, there's series of works that kind of have a continuity with that piece. And so there's not a specific number. Cool. Okay. If you come off the call and you think, I should have asked that question, well, you've got our email addresses. Please do just send in a question. Um, wish you all the very best with your expressions of interest. Thank you for coming along.